So I'm Greg Baker. I'm head of Saints Foundation and Community Partnerships at Southampton Football Club, which is a club in the English Premier League. And effectively, Saints Foundation is a charity linked to the club who supports young people and adults in our local community. And we say that we do three things: make people more involved with their community, make them healthier, and hopefully make them more empowered to make decisions about their own lives too.
So Southampton is one of the biggest clubs in the Premier League, and also the Premier League is one of the biggest companies in the world. So how does your work and the work of Saints Foundation, how does it give back to the community? How do the football club use Saints Foundation to give back to the community and help those supporters in need?
Okay, so Saints Foundation is obviously an independent charity, but absolutely intrinsically linked into Southampton Football Club, and effectively we are the representatives of Southampton Football Club in the community. So, we are wearing this and we are effectively representing the club in everything that we do. So actually, to all intents and purposes, when an older person or a young person engages with us in school, of course they know that someone is coming from Saints Foundation, but actually they will think they're engaging with the club, and effectively that's what we want, because ultimately that's what we're trying to achieve here. And I think for them, obviously, for a lot of those people being Saints fans, actually it's a shared language as well. As we know, football is a shared language right across the globe. And actually often it's the starting point of conversation. So for a young person who might be engaging in school, who might be struggling a little bit with their relationship with teachers, actually for one of our staff to come in Saints tracksuit, someone who they can talk to on their level, is actually a real great thing for them to be able to start that relationship. So I think that is the crux of what we're trying to achieve, is really use the club's brand to engage with individuals in the community who might be struggling for one reason or another. And I think the brand and the probably the neutrality that we've got actually gives us a better starting point than if we were walking in as a purely independent charity, or as part of the local authority, as part of the local government. So it's our way of giving back. The club, I think, is a good community partner all round, but let's be honest, 32,000 people come to St Mary's on a match day in normal times, not quite so much at the moment, but ultimately this is our way of supporting the community who are impacted by us. But what is really important to say is, whilst a lot of our participants are Saints fans, actually we do engage with all members of the community. So whether that's stereotypically an 80-year-old lady who is never going to come to a game, never has been to a game, not actually that interested in football, we are just hopefully the best solution to support her. So we don't do it for reasons of creating fans. We do it for reasons of supporting the community in the most holistic of senses.
And what I think the interesting thing for this, for people watching, will be the fact that, as you say, it's an independent charity that works very closely with Southampton Football Club. What are the benefits that the football club get out of working with Saints Foundation, do you think?
So I think the two organisations go hand in hand, and effectively, our staff will absolutely think that they work for Southampton Football Club, and they do, albeit apart from sort of the name on the payslip that comes through at the end of the month. So I think the benefit is showing that we care, and ultimately, and let's be completely honest, it's not the only activity that the club do in the community. Club do a lot of fan engagement. They're working with civic partners around the city council, around the local universities, loads of stuff. But we're probably in reality the organisation that works with vulnerable people that need that support. So certainly we know that there is a positivity that comes towards the football club because of the activity that we do. So we know that 80% or so of Saints fans that are surveyed at the end of the season say that they believe that Saints Foundation does a good job, and therefore by association there is a marker around about that 80% again that say, actually, I respect Southampton Football Club more because of what they do in the community and because of what I see them doing. So I think we need to be really clear. We do not do our job for the reason of of creating fans or for making people think better of us. But ultimately, if it's a natural byproduct of the good job that you're doing, then ultimately that's great. So we get a huge amount of support from the club, because it's the right thing to do, and the club truly believe in what we are doing to support those vulnerable members of the community. And that's played out many, many times, both in terms of cash value, but also in terms of marketing value and support. But I just want to be clear that ultimately that isn't the reason why the club, the reason why the club do that is not for commercial gain. If the commercial gain comes out the back of it, 3 or 4 people down the line because of people understanding actually what we do, then great. But that isn't the reason why we do it. But I think certainly for brand awareness, brand appeal, it definitely helps the club to have a really burgeoning, really active charity that's working with vulnerable people, active in 75% of the schools in Southampton, working with young people, working with older people, working with vulnerable adults, working around disability. So actually having that people, those 60 people out on a day-by-day basis, working positively with people, fundamentally, hopefully changing people's lives, can only be a positive in terms of how we're seen collectively as a group when we talk about Southampton Football Club and Saints Foundation. So I think we don't do it for commercial benefit, but if commercial benefit flows out the back of it, then fantastic. Why would we not embrace that?
Absolutely. Something you touched on already, and that I know is very clear with Saints Foundation is the wide age range and the wide types of people you work with. So it ranges from, as I know, from the ages of 3 to 103, and you work with a broad spectrum of different types of people across the city of Southampton. What do you look for when you're choosing to create a new project or to work with a group of people? What are you looking for?
So I guess the biggest thing is need. So it's working with local stakeholders to ensure that a program that we run is absolutely needed and is going to reach the right people in the right locations at the right times. I think ourselves and organisations like ourselves, elsewhere in the country and probably elsewhere in the world, in the past have probably been a little bit guilty of doing things to people, kind of coming in with a project. Oh, that's a great idea. We're going to run this session, going to run this activity. We're going to start this new project without doing any form of community engagement or without talking to local stakeholders about actually what's needed, maybe even replicating a service that's already existing. So, we're absolutely committed to basing all that we do on need. So, for example, that would be working with the City Council around their stats. So if they're telling us, for example, that there is an issue with isolation within older people in a particular location, then we'll try and be responsive to that need. If there's a particular school where, there might be issues around aspiration within young people or around their numeracy and literacy skills, then again, we'll use that data to go and make sure we're in the right places. So there's, something in the UK called the IMD matrix, so the indices of multiple deprivation, which effectively goes into poverty and whether unemployment rates and free school meals and all that kind of stuff. So ultimately, we'll try to make sure that our school services are going into the right places. And then even more so when we're in the school, making sure that we're working, for example, and that school is just one example of what we do. When we're working with the school, we'll make sure that we're really embedded into that school model, working with the deputy head or the pastoral lead to make sure that even within that school, so within a microcosm, ultimately, the right people are being reached. So who are their top 25 young people that actually might need a bit of help? So they might be struggling within mainstream education, they might be struggling with their behaviour, they might be struggling with their confidence. So actually, how can Saints Foundation target positively those individuals within that group to make sure that our work is reaching the right people? So we've moved away in the last few years from being concerned about numbers. So we probably, again, in the past used to want to reach 50,000 people a year. And now, ultimately, we much prefer to reach some far smaller numbers. Our operation is much bigger, but conversely, we're reaching smaller numbers, but we're reaching them for more hours because we know that has an impact. So it's about using that data and anecdotal evidence. Data can only go so far. Ultimately, it's got to be data with people's opinion as well. And ultimately, we're using all of that to try and improve our service. And actually, I would very much say that if we don't, we probably over the next few years won't get bigger. We might add a few new programs, but we won't necessarily triple our turnover or double our staff team or whatever. But ultimately what we are committed to is that we use that evidence year on year to make sure that our services are better for the end user. So they won't necessarily be reaching more people, but they might be reaching them for more hours. And ultimately, the only thing that really matters is what the outcomes are for those young people and adults. So, we survey people, all the time around how they're feeling about things, whether they think that our services have had an effect, what more we can do, etc., etc. And ultimately, that is used copiously to make sure that our services are improved. So I guess it's a bit of a feel, people feeling that actually that service is really needed because of what young people and adults are saying to them, but also making sure that we're really engaged both with stakeholders, so the city council, the police, the violence reduction units, etc., as well as making sure that we're embedded within the local community, because there is absolutely no point, and it's actually quite a negative, to start an activity in a particular area when no one's asked you to do so. So actually, we need to make sure that we feel like the need is there. We know what the issues are, because then only from that point can you actually make a fundamental and positive difference.
Absolutely. One thing that we're talking about in these sets of webinars is corporate responsibility within big organisations. So obviously, I know you work fundamentally with Saints Foundation, so maybe this is something for the football club, but how important do you think, you've already mentioned and touched upon how the club see it as the right thing to do, and that it's not necessarily about any corporate growth, it's the right thing to do, morally speaking. So where does that come from within this business specifically, because not every business would take that track?
I think it comes right from the top, from our leadership team within the board, about, as you said, really, in reality, thinking that this is the right thing to do. And when we're talking about corporate social responsibility, we're talking about the widest part of that. So Saints Foundation will play a role in the club's corporate social responsibility strategy, but at the same time, so will our policies around energy, so will our policies around carbon footprint, around our equality and diversity stats, around our fan engagement, around our positive pledges towards local businesses, etc., etc. So I think that for any business, probably CSR policy is work in progress, and actually no business can probably ever complete that that task, because it's an ever evolving world. But I think the commitment to that is very, very strong from the club, and as I say, we play a role in that, and I think we play a really important role. And I would suggest that our role in reality is probably working with those people that need our support. So we talk about, as per the answer to the last question, always working around need, always working around vulnerability with a small v. So actually people that need our support in some way. The club's wider corporate social responsibility will be to make sure that we are a good citizen in that community, in the city and beyond, when we're working with all parties. So actually, when we're working with the city council, making sure that we fundamentally believe in the same things. We all believe that we want to make Southampton a better place to live, a better place to visit, because that has a benefit to all of us. That has a benefit to the city council, that has a benefit to local businesses, that has a benefit to us as a club, because more players are want to come to the city, more fans are going to want to come to games, more people are going to want to buy merchandise, etc., etc. So I think that, again, that isn't being done for those commercial reasons, but actually any good business, it's part of a corporate growth strategy, is to be a sustainable business. We've all seen the stats about young people, particularly of generation 20s and below, absolutely want to engage with businesses who are fundamentally doing things right and ultimately making positive change to their business practices. And I think it's something like 75% of people say that they want to work for an organisation that does that. The other 25% might not care, but those 75% are really, really important to organisations. And actually, that again isn't the sole reason why we're doing it. The reason why we're doing it is because it's the right thing to do. But I think that fundamentally, the commitment to being a good citizen, a good neighbour, a good club working in the local community comes from the very top. And I think it's also really clear to say that is increasingly being ingrained in all facets of the business. So whether you work in the retail team, whether you work in finance, whether you work in HR or on the grounds team, for example, everything you're doing is having a CSR spin. How can we do this that has a way of protecting the environment better than we're currently doing? How do we make sure that we're treating people better? How do we make sure that the impact on the local community is stronger? How do we make sure that our supply chains are local? You know, those kind of things. So there's a lot of work going on at the moment. And as I say, the Saints Foundation is a really important part of it, but actually in reality, just a part of it.
Just switching to a slightly different topic. Obviously, at Youth Time, we are all about working for young people and building their potential, something that Saints Foundation do as well. Can you give me a bit of a flavour about one particular project that works with the same group of people that we work with here? Is Saints Works. Can you just give me a bit of an understanding on that and what you guys do with the 16 to 24-year-olds in the city?
Yeah, so Saints Works is effectively a program that is trying to build confidence and skills for young people to, when they're ready to enter the workforce, so either volunteer somewhere and have work placements, or ultimately end up with a substantive, hopefully full-time role. So Saints Works really is trying to work with those young people that are probably the furthest away from the job market, if we're honest. So those aren't the young people that are leaving school with qualifications and just thinking, I don't really know what I want to do. This is for young people that might be struggling with aspiration, struggling with their motivation, might even be struggling to get up in the morning because actually, well, what's the point? That is really, so it's a 10-week program. That the fundamentals of the very start of the program really are to try to build those skills, confidence, you know, trying to iron out any issues that might be the reason why those young people can't engage within work, and actually over that time build up opportunities to do social programs within the city. So to try and give something back, to do CV writing workshops, to do mock interviews, to have some real life experience of work placement. So we have a number of deals with businesses in the city, including some of the facets of the football club, where young people can go and get a 2-week work placement to see what life is really like for people in work. That hopefully gives them, you know, the routine of being able to get up in the morning, go to work, have that sort of that positivity about themselves, but also can often be a rehearsal for them to go and get a job, because actually we've seen time and time again where those young people go along, you know, achieving something they didn't think they'd ever be able to achieve, go along to that job for 2 weeks, work for free, and then, you know, great, out the back of it becomes a full-time role. So we're actually just starting a partnership with our catering and events partner at the club, who is now an external company, where effectively they are going to be guaranteeing interviews for those young people that are coming out the back of that program, with an idea of being able to offer them substantive roles, either as a casual or a full-time member of staff. So it's really to try and pick up young people aged 16 to 24 at, I guess, their lowest ebb, where they just don't believe in themselves, and maybe others don't believe in them too, and try and build that confidence and use our, you know, the skill set that we've got within the staff team, but also the opportunities that we have, either via internal you know, partnerships or via partnerships with other businesses in the city, to ask those businesses to take a chance on these young people. And actually, I think time and time again, those businesses are surprised by what those young people can achieve if they put their mind to it and if they have some support behind the scenes. So I think that's the same as any program. What I'd be really clear on saying is the success is delivered by the individual. The individual has to want to engage, has to want to change, I guess, if that's the word we're using here. But so all that our staff do is to be that hopefully motivational figure behind the scenes that tells people they can do it, maybe gives them a bit of a push in the right direction, maybe keeps them on the right track, tries to motivate them when they're feeling down. But, you know, really important in everything that we do with young people, you know, in primary school right through to older adults, actually the success has to be put down to the individual who is you know, who is the person who might be struggling. Our staff can be the catalyst for that change. But Saints Works is a great program with real success measures. We're working with around about 50 young people a year, so not huge numbers, but actually we think that's really important, because the amount of time that we can put into those young people is therefore increased. And actually what is really important also to stress is that beyond the end of that 10-week program, that there is a constant engagement. So those young people will, if they choose to, they can leave. Of course, if they sort a job out and they feel that they're confident, they can go and they can say, right, thanks guys, I'm done with. But actually, what we do is we have a weekly session where those young people that come out the back of that Saints Works program can still continue to engage, as well as continuing one-to-one sessions at the moment over Zoom and things like that, but ultimately normally in person, where actually our workers can check in with someone and say, how you doing? What support do you need? Do we need to integrate you back into a program? So it's about that consistency of support really right across our programs.
Talking of all the programs, I mean, Saints Works is one of, I think, 14 programs that you run at Saints Foundation. That the way you run them, obviously, it's not free. It's not something that you guys can fund solely off the money of Southampton Football Club. You have many partners across the country, including the Premier League. How important is that for sustainability within the organisation? I mean, obviously, Southampton Football Club has a massive impact on your work, but that is also comes from other places as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately it's crucial. I mean, our principle is that end users, so as in the young people or the adults that engage with our services, don't pay. So ultimately, as you say, Josh, the reality is we've got to find that money from somewhere else. So we do have a very generous lead partner in Southampton Football Club, but as you alluded to, one of our main partners is the Premier League. So the Premier League have a fantastic good causes policy by which they make a significant amount of money available to each club that is in the league, but also really importantly to stress clubs that are not in the Premier League as well. So clubs that are in the Football League, the Championship, League One, League Two, even in the National League, and even sometimes clubs below, where they are given significant grants to run predefined programs in the community, of which Saints Works was one, called Premier League Works at one point in time. They don't actually fund that program anymore, so we've had to mainstream that. But to be able to rely on that funding is crucial. And absolutely, I am a strong believer that the Premier League does a fantastic job. And I don't think there's any other league structure or national governing body structure, even within the world, that supports their clubs and therefore by association supports the communities that those clubs exist in the same way as the Premier League. I know, NFL doesn't do it, the NBA doesn't do it. They do other stuff, but they don't do it to this same level, so that's really important, as is our relationship with other funding partners, so other sort of trusts and foundations within the UK, big national charities that we've been into, but also really important is our fundraising locally as well, really strong relationships with a group of fans, more than a group of fans generally, but probably, in particular, some really strong advocates within the fan group who will come along to our events where we're doing things like fundraising dinners, we do quizzes, we do bike rides, we do, runs, etc., as well as, things on match day where we're doing match day lotto draws. We've got our own eBay site where we sell our match-worn Saints merchandise, shirts and boots and various bits. But yeah, I mean, effectively, as you alluded to, this work doesn't come for free. I mean, we turn over nearly £3 million a year to run our business. So ultimately, that is a constant struggle, battle to want to be able to even sustain that amount of money, let alone grow year on year, particularly in the time that we're in at the moment, where actually, money is scarce within individuals. So if you're asking trusts and foundations to fund your work, actually the competition is huge from other charities. And equally, if you're asking fans to engage, firstly, you've got the challenge that match days aren't really happening in the same way that they would normally be happening. You certainly can't run a 450 person fundraising dinner. And those people may well be in financial positions that they weren't in previously, where they might have lost jobs or lost businesses. So I think we're in a tough world at the moment. But I think the caveat to that and the flip side of that is that ultimately our services and the services of organisations like us are needed more than ever. So actually that's the paradox in this world at this moment in time. We've got older people who are probably more isolated than ever. So actually, how do we support them through virtual activity, through socially distanced walks, through physical activity? Young people, taking Saints Works as an example, more young people out of work, not the job prospects that there were. Adults that might be struggling with their mental health because again they've not had the same opportunities to engage with friends. So actually, at the time when we probably are in the most challenging position around fundraising and funding. That that we're also in the most challenging position about having to run our activity. So that is a challenge, and it's a struggle day in, day out to try and raise that money. But ultimately, we've got a really strong team behind us that is trying to work that through.
What of your speaking 2020? I mean, obviously, it's not just Saints Foundation that have been affected throughout the club. Obviously, the business itself has been impacted as well. What sort of conversations have you had about the future and about how Southampton Football Club will continue their support of Saints Foundation?
I mean, I think fundamentally, to the point earlier, they believe in what we do, and ultimately, I don't see anything changing. In terms of that level of support, and certainly we've had the commitment that they see us as a really important facet, and actually probably even more important than before. Our CEO said to me before that whilst he always believed that we were a fundamental, really important part of our business, actually he's now seeing that we are needed more than ever in the local community. So I think that that even at board level, they're identifying the fact that Saints Foundation and that other CSR activity that the club are looking to grow and develop is really, really important. So I certainly don't think we've got any concerns about support from the club. I think where the challenges do come in is around, as I alluded to before, is some of that funding from elsewhere, about how competitive it is. But I think that, to answer the question really briefly, is we will see that support financially and otherwise increase from the club as opposed to decrease, because everyone believes that what we do and what the type of work that we do is really, really important. And actually, I think that probably plays into the hands in reality of the world, hopefully this year, has this year become more caring about people and its neighbours and people looking out for each other. And in this country, the love of the NHS and others. And actually, I think if there's one positive that comes out of this really tough situation for people, is if we can continue that community spirit beyond the end. But when the vaccine kicks in and everyone's able to engage in the normal way, actually, how do we continue that positivity that we had this year, where actually people probably more than ever are looking out for their elderly neighbour, or are looking out for their friend, or so that's the positivity. And I think that the club support for us is probably a mass scale of that. They realise that actually people in the community need that support, so we are probably more important than ever than we ever have been before.
And what sort of reactions have you had from the average fan of Southampton Football Club? So not necessarily the ones that are engaged with the projects, but ones that may take a passing interest in Saints Foundation a couple of times a year. What sort of reactions you've had over the last 12 months?
There's been huge positivity, and I think probably to the point that we were talking about a second ago, our kind of work has become front and centre in people's minds. So actually people realise why it's needed, what is needed, the type of young people and adults that you're working with. So we've had some real positivity. I mean, there's obviously, we have our huge advocates within the fan base, those people that tweet, time and time again, those people that retweet, those people that are really positive on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc., etc. And we also have those people that are quite much more quiet advocates. We know, I can't tell you what every single Saints fan thinks, clearly, because there's quite a few of them. But we do know that in the end of season survey that went out in August or so this year, 5,000 or so people answered. 80% of them said that they thought we did a good, or 83% I think this year said that they thought that we did a really good job in the community, which is great, which is growth year on year. And then secondly, that, as I alluded to before, they felt that they were prouder to support Southampton Football Club because of the work of Saints Foundation. So I think that the average fan on the street, I think, thinks highly of us. Let's be completely honest. They support the football club because of the football club. They support, and actually the fundamental of what they probably care first and foremost about is winning games and dannying, scoring, and that kind of stuff. But actually, I think that there is a general positivity that if their club that they support and they've loved for years can also do really good stuff for their local community, then all the better.
James Ward-Prowse here. I hope that you're all staying safe at home. Today I'm making a few calls to a few Saints Foundation senior Saints to find out how they're keeping busy and how the charity have continued to support them throughout the lockdown. Just wanted to catch up with you guys, see how you're doing throughout the lockdown and stuff. How's it all been going?
What we find is we miss the company. We make good friends with the team, and we make good friends with all the other people participating. But I must say that after the lockdown, the team kept in brilliant touch, regular touch, you know, offering help in any way they could.
It was so good because I used to be very fit in my old days. Really fit. Yeah, I used to do so much. Then I got old, James.
She got hold of me.
I got old, yeah. And then along came Jess and Callum. And that was just a new life. And, you know, the exercises were brilliant.
Yeah.
And mentally, for me especially, I need company. And of course I have my company as well, you know. So I've got them a lot to thank them for, you know.
No, it's good. I mean, I've heard a lot of positive things pre-lockdown that the foundation were doing. So I think it's credit to them that you know, even during tough times, they're still able to put things on for everybody to feel connected. I think that speaks volumes about the type of club that we are. Yeah, I think I need to get along to one of these exercise classes and show the manager I can do a bit of the old workout. Eh? You never know.
I'm sure you can. We'll take a few free kicks. You can train us to do a few free kicks.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe that should be the next class for the foundation, to do a free kick class, and I'll try and meet you down at the school and show you it. All obviously socially distant, of course. That's the new thing now, isn't it? But you know, I'm sure we can sort something out. I'll have a word with the guys anyway.
They're doing a fantastic job and willing and caring, and I can't speak highly enough of them.
You know, whether it's a good time or a bad time, you still look after each other and make sure everybody's okay. So yeah, no, it's pleasing to hear that you're enjoying it all and they're still looking after you.
Well, you're a credit to the club, James.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The pitch and off the pitch.
No, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, and all the best for now.
You too. Yeah, nice to see you both.
Lovely to see you.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye. Well, it was great to chat with Trevor and Anne. You know, I think that everybody's going through a difficult time, but I think you can see the Saints Foundation are really helping them through this difficult time, and especially when we're all locked down and not able to see everybody. So it's great to see them.